Yo, good morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever time you are tuning into this broadcast. This is Issues, Coach Ish, whatever you want to call me. And let's talk a little bit of boxing. Um, Good fight coming up, intriguing fight coming up. I meant to leave a video about this earlier. The fight is tomorrow, but I thought I'd still leave a video. But I've been following this fight. Uh, Excuse me. Been following this fight kind of closely, and that's between Liam Smith and Chris Eubanks Jr. 2. It's the rematch. Okay. Um, Chris Eubanks. Chris Eubanks, for those who don't know, is the son of Chris Eubanks Sr., who is a British boxing legend, Hall of Famer, and you know, a very good fighter. A very good fighter. Um, I wasn't the biggest Chris Eubanks Sr. fan, but you can't deny what he's accomplished in the ring. So his son is a high profile fighter, as a lot of the sons of great fighters until they can't live up to the hype that's placed on them, and then they kind of fall off. So he's one who there's been a lot of hype behind him, and going into the last fight, he was the favorite, bigger guy, longer reach, considered by most to be the better fighter or the better boxer. In his mind, he feels like he's the better fighter or the better boxer. And when they squared off the first time, Chris Eubanks Jr. got stopped by Liam Smith in the fourth round. Now, what are my takeaways from that last fight? Chris Eubanks Jr., to me, he has he's what I call a pretty fighter. There's some fighters who fight pretty, there's some fighters who fight ugly, there's some fighters who are just what I call blue collar. They put in the work. There's no flash and pizzazz behind them. They're just really good at doing at being fundamentally sound. So there's fundamental fighters, they're ugly fighters, and then they're pretty fighters. Chris Eubanks is what I consider to be a pretty fighter. I don't mean his appearance. I mean how he fights. What I mean by that is stylistically, it looks, it looks flashy. It looks appealing to see a fighter, number one, fight with their hands down. That's one of the telltale signs when you're in the ring with somebody who, you know, they slick. They want to be pretty and flashy and all that, right? So I think that's one of the biggest problems Chris Eubanks has, is that he fights, number one, with his hands down. His defense and his offense is with his hands down. And even when he's holding his hands up to fight, let me tilt this down a little bit. He kind of holds them wide. Okay? He kind of holds, even his right hand, he keeps his right hand about right there. Okay? He's wide. And all his offense comes from either here or the hand completely down. Okay? When he slips and rolls, he brings his hands away from his face, right? Uses a lot of upper body movement and stuff like that. And that's actually what got him in trouble, the last fight. Liam Smith is what I call a blue collar worker. He's a blue collar fighter. He's a fundamental fighter. He's not pretty. He's not ugly. You know what I'm saying? He's just fundamentally sound. When you see him, his hands is here. You know what I'm saying? His elbows is tucked. You know what I mean? I think he relies on the high guard a little bit too much sometimes, but he's very disciplined as far as keeping them hands right there. Okay? He's very disciplined with that, and this is basically the stance that he fights out of. Okay? His decent head movement, decent defense. His defense comes from the fact that he tries to stay defensively responsible. On the other hand, Chris Eubanks, he's not really defensively responsible, and that's how he got clipped. He got clipped in the last fight, which showed me something. A lot of people was talking about Chris Eubanks' chin. I've never really seen, I've never really seen anything in previous fights to indicate that he has an above average chin. But what I did see in the last fight is that he doesn't have, well, I'm not going to say he doesn't have a good chin. I'm going to say he doesn't have good punch resistance. Because he got hit with, he was in the corner. Liam Smith came with the combination. Chris Eubanks is trying to defend in the corner, but not being defensively responsible. Bringing his head away from his face. Okay. Trying to rely on movement and head movement and stuff to get out of the way of shots. And he caught two significant shots. He caught two significant shots that wound up knocking him out. And that was a straight right hand and a left uppercut. He caught. And boom, put him down. But it didn't just put him down. When he got up, he was clearly out of it. He was out. Okay, he was walking like a zombie. And then they continued to fight. The ref continued to fight. Liam Smith hit him a couple more times, and then he was out on his feet. He was out on his feet so much that even after the ref waved it off, Chris Eubanks was stumbling over there to Liam Smith because he thought the fight was still going. But you could clearly see, like, his movement is staggered and he's out of it, but he's still thinking that he's in the fight. That's a different kind of stoppage. That's a different kind of stoppage. You really, really got stopped. And you got stopped because it's one thing to get stopped or get clipped and then you stagger a little bit, but then you recover. You know what I'm saying? Or you stagger a little bit, or you stagger a little bit and you recover quick. His recovery was terrible. In that particular fight, his recovery was terrible. He got stopped, fourth round. Now, before that, fourth round, I seen a clip where Chris Eubanks and Liam Smith was arguing, and Chris Eubanks was like, "You didn't touch me for the first 3 rounds." That's cap. That's cap. That's complete cap. So, which segues me to my prediction. I think Liam Smith is going to beat him again. I think he's going to beat him again. And here's the reasons why. The worst thing you could be as a fighter is delusional. It's the worst thing you could be as a fighter is delusional with a false sense of confidence or your inability to accept reality. As a fighter, you should always be willing to accept whatever reality that's presented to you, whether it's the fact that you got beat by a certain fighter, you really got beat. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you get beat, it's important to acknowledge that you got beat. It's important. Because if you don't acknowledge you got beat, then there's no need to fix, whatever flaws that led you to getting beat. And when I'm listening to Chris Eubanks, it doesn't sound like he understands that he got beat. I've heard him say things in the build-up like that fight was a miracle. Like what happened was a freak occurrence. There's no freak occurrences in boxing. There's no freak occurrences in boxing. You know what I'm saying? Something happened due to something else. You get stopped, you get beat, or whatever the case may be. There's no freak occurrences. You made an error. You made a mistake. Even if you are considered or you are the better fighter, you made a mistake. When Nassim Rahman clipped Lennox Lewis, even though Lennox Lewis was clearly the better fighter, it was because Lennox Lewis made a mistake and he paid for it. So there's no freak occurrences. Things don't just happen, and if things do happen, if you're the type of fighter that believes that, then you can't really call yourself a top tier boxer, in my opinion, because being a top tier boxer is understanding that you know, there's cause and effect in the ring, and everything, everything that happens, right? Every shot that you take, every punch that lands on you is because of something you did wrong. You know what I'm saying? Or somewhere where you wasn't fully focused, or you wasn't, you know what I mean, you completely on point. So Chris Eubanks did a lot in that fight, or didn't do a lot in that fight, to, and that was the reason why he lost. Um, Hold his hands low, not defensively responsible, relying too much on, you know, talent than actual skill. Okay, um, he has a like a Roy Jones kind of style, but he's not as talented as Roy Jones. He's not as physically gifted as Roy Jones. Roy Jones, Ali, um, Sergio Martinez, there's a couple other fighters I could throw in there. A lot of other fighters I could throw in there. Prince Nassim Hamid. You know what I'm saying? These are fighters who got away with a lot of fundamental mistakes, but because they were incredibly talented, physically gifted, they were able to get away with it. I don't see Chris Eubanks as that guy. He's not really physically gifted to me. He's not really talented enough to pull off the style that he uses, or that he used. Well, he uses this style all the time, but against someone like a Liam Smith. Now, he could beat Liam Smith. Liam, you know, he could beat him. You know what I'm saying? I'm not ruling that possibility out. I'm saying if Liam Smith, you know, all he has to do is correct a couple mistakes that he was making. One of them in particular is keeping that head. He relies too much on the high guard, keeps that head on line. So Chris Eubanks was having success with that, with the uppercut. You know what I'm saying? He was finding a home for the uppercut a lot. So he gotta, you know, he gotta keep that head off line. You know what I'm saying? If he spent most of the camp doing that, adding head movement to his repertoire, he could beat him again. He could beat him again. And the reason why I'm picking Liam Smith to win again is because of Chris Eubanks' attitude towards the first loss. Meaning, he didn't fully accept the fact that he lost. And even when I'm listening to him and they asking him, you know, what changes do you need to make or whatever, and he doesn't think he need to make any changes. He doesn't think he need to make any changes. And that should never be the case after a loss. That should never be the case. Even, you know, they asked him about training with Bomac. He's training with Bomac now. And, you know, he pretty much said that Bomac is not making any changes to his style. You know, which is, there's wisdom in that. It's really hard, you know, from one fight to another fight for a trainer to make changes in your style, unless you are 100% willing and committed to the change. As a fighter, you are 100% willing to empty your cup and go into a new situation with a new trainer and fully accept the training, you know what I'm saying, and come back with new wrinkles in your game, whether they be just simple things like keeping your hands higher, you know, keeping your hands higher, staying more defensively responsible. He throw punches, his hands drop. You know, he should throw punches and his hand here. Or at least if you're going to drop it, you know, raise it first. Put it high. And then you may drop it when you feel safe. Right? But, so, you know, you can make changes from fight camp to fight camp. From one fight to another fight to the next fight with a new trainer, if you are willing to go in there and commit to the work and commit to the changes and empty your cup and, you know what I'm saying? Maybe not empty it completely. You might be able to salvage and save some things, but if you believe in a trainer enough to dump your old trainer for a new trainer when you're fighting the same fighter, then you should go into the gym, you know, with an open mind and say, look, you know, whatever you say I need to work on or change, I'm fully committed to that process, right? But a lot of fighters are not, you know, egos is high in boxing on all levels. on every level of boxing, the egos are ridiculously high a lot of times. In my personal opinion, I think the best fighters are the humble fighters. The best fighters are the ones who stay humble. Even Ali, when he ran around saying, I'm the greatest, this and that, whatever, that was really just a marketing ploy. If you really listen to him, he didn't really think he was the greatest. In fact, he would always give it up to Sugar Ray Robinson, who he got his dancing style from, Sugar Ray Robinson. Michael Jordan, you know what I'm saying, as much as he talked trash on the basketball court and all that, if you listen to him and you ask him, is he the greatest basketball player of all time, he'll always say no, you know what I'm saying, or he don't know, because there's a lot of guys he never played against, so he could never say that he's the greatest. So, the best fighters are the humble ones, you know what I'm saying. They may exude a little bit of um, bravado, you know what I'm saying, to sell tickets, but when you really listen to them in interviews, you can tell that they're humble. Um, Chris Eubanks, from all accounts, from his father, from Roy Jones, from a lot of people, he one of those fighters who think he all that, already, you know what I'm saying? That's just my personal impression watching him, you know what I'm saying? And even in the build-up where he's saying things like, I don't need to change anything, or, you know what I mean? He's not really making no changes to my game. He just, getting me ready for the fight, you know what I'm saying? Those are red flags for me. You know what I'm saying? Those are red flags for me. Because if you take a loss, especially the type of loss he took, you know what I'm saying? He got clipped pretty bad. You know what I'm saying? He got beat up pretty bad. It wasn't a sustained beating throughout the fight, but the sequence that ultimately led to the stoppage, you could say it was an ass whooping. Because even in the streets, the ass whooping don't last but a couple seconds. You know what I'm saying? The ass whooping, a fight in the street ain't but, 30 seconds, 30, 40 seconds, less than a minute, really. You know what I'm saying? So you can get your ass whooped for a minute, or you get your ass whooped for 30 seconds. You know what I'm saying? So that 30-second sequence that led to the two stoppages, the second one ultimately is which one to stop the fight. The knockdown and then the stoppage, well, it only lasted for about 30 seconds, you know what I'm saying? But it was a 30-second ass whooping. So, you go out like that, you should be fully committed to making whatever adjustments and changes. And it doesn't seem like he's totally bought in on that, on the fact that he lost and he needs to make serious changes if he hopes to win the rematch. From what I'm listening to in the press conferences and the face-offs and the interviews they've been having and the back and forths they've been having online or whatever, it just seems like he just feels like that loss was a freak occurrence, and all he needs to do is just continue to do what he was doing. And he wasn't dominating the fight before he lost. He was doing some good work. He had finally started to find a home for the jab in about the second round. First round was pretty uneventful. He let Liam Smith gain too much ground on him, but that's what happens when you hold your hand low. You know what I'm saying? I always tell fighters in the gym, either hold it out or up. Out or up. Never down. Never down. Unless it's a trap. Unless you trying to bait them in. You trying to bait the fighter in. You know what I'm saying? Or you see the opening where they're not paying attention to below the chest line, below the waistline, and you bringing shots up from the waistline because you notice that, you know what I'm saying, those shots land because they're not really paying attention down low, right? But just as a style altogether, it works for some fighters, it don't work for other fighters, but ultimately when you run into a fighter who is just as talented as you, but is much more fundamentally sound, you know what I'm saying, and defensively responsible, a lot of times you'll lose that fight. And it's happened to most of the fighters who fight that type of style with the hands down and all that, and more interested, more preoccupied with the flash and the pizzazz other than the blue collar work. So I got Liam Smith winning this fight, winning the second fight as well. I don't think it could be a stoppage based on how he got stopped last time. He could hit him and hurt him. I mean, he hurt him pretty bad, and those shots didn't really look devastating, you know what I'm saying, for as long as he was out in that fight. He was out for a while. It wasn't like unconscious, but he was on wobbly legs and his brain wasn't there. Like I said, he running, still trying to fight, and he's on wobbly legs, and you know what I'm saying? Like that's a bad way to go out. You know what I mean? But it also exhibits a certain level of non-self-awareness, I guess you could say. Not being totally aware of where you at and what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? So you got your faculties separated from you. You know what I mean? And if that happened in that fight, it could happen again. It could happen again. You know, the way he got stopped before, it could happen again. You know what I'm saying? And I don't feel like he made enough, even watching his sparring, you know what I mean? He still fights the same. I don't think he's made enough adjustments and changes to his game in order to prevent that from happening, in order just to be more defensively responsible to prevent that from happening. So I got Liam Smith winning. I could be wrong. We'll see what happens. You know, and I'll be back after the fight to give my review of the matchup. I think it's going to be a good fight, though. I think it's going to be a better fight than the last fight. I think it's definitely going to go longer than the last fight went. And I think it's going to be a very, very interesting fight. But I feel like Liam Smith will ultimately come out with the victory, whether it be a unanimous decision or a late stoppage. You know what I'm saying? I think Liam Smith is going to pull it out. But that's what I got. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Let's talk about it. Peace.